Black soldiers were called animals, by their own commanders, by men who wore the same uniform. But in the ruins of occupied Japan, something unexpected happened. Japanese women, told these soldiers were savages, saw something else entirely. Kindness where cruelty was promised. Dignity where propaganda said there was none. A sergeant breaks up a fight and receives nothing but insults. But a young nurse sees only courage. One rice ball, one whispered thank you, one stolen moment under floating lanterns. Then the rules come down, fraternization forbidden, but only for some. White soldiers break them daily. Black soldiers are hunted for a smile. When she's taken, bruised and detained for the crime of speaking to him, he faces an impossible choice. Obey, stay silent, survive, or abandon everything to stand for the one thing they say he doesn't deserve. When the world calls you an animal, how do you prove your humanity? And what happens when the women meant to fear you choose to love you instead? The morning sun pressed down on Yokohama repatriation station through thin gray clouds. Sergeant Isaiah Cole stood near the gate, his boots dusty from overnight patrol. His unit of black military policemen had been walking the perimeter since midnight. Now exhaustion made his shoulders heavy. The station yard buzzed with tired confusion. Japanese civilians formed ragged lines at wooden tables. Their faces were drawn from months of rationing. White GIs leaned against jeeps, smoking and laughing too loud. Officers barked orders that echoed off the corrugated metal buildings. Isaiah watched everything with careful eyes. He had learned to watch. In Georgia, watching kept you alive. Here in occupied Japan, it kept you out of trouble. Two white soldiers stumbled through the crowd. They were drunk even though it was barely 9 in the morning. One shoved an elderly Japanese vendor who sold rice crackers from a wooden cart. The old man tumbled backward, his crackers scattered across the dirt. Isaiah moved before he thought. He caught the vendor's arm and steadied him. The white soldiers turned on Isaiah immediately. "Get your hands off me, animal," the taller one snarled. The word cut through the morning noise. Several Japanese civilians turned to stare. Isaiah felt heat climb his neck. He released the vendor and stepped back. His hands stayed visible and empty. "Just keeping the peace," Isaiah said quietly. "You keep to your own kind," the shorter soldier spat. Isaiah said nothing more. The two soldiers staggered away, still laughing. Isaiah helped the vendor gather his crackers. The old man bowed once and whispered something in Japanese. Isaiah did not understand the words, but the gratitude in the man's eyes needed no translation. When Isaiah finally looked up, he noticed a cluster of young Japanese women standing near the ration station. They were watching him with expressions he could not name. Not disgust, not fear, something closer to curiosity. One woman in particular held his gaze. She wore a simple gray dress and a white armband marked with a red cross. A nurse. Her face was solemn, but her eyes were steady. Isaiah looked away first. He walked back toward the MP post under those flat gray clouds. Humiliation burned in his chest. But something else stirred there too. Something unexpected. He pushed through the door of the MP shack for shift change. The nurse's face stayed with him. The barracks smelled like old canvas and cigarette smoke. Isaiah sat on his bunk, cleaning his rifle with slow, methodical strokes. Around him, other men from his squad moved through the same routine. No one spoke much. Private Lewis broke the silence first. "You all right, Sarge?" Isaiah nodded without looking up. "Fine." Lewis did not believe him. No one would. But no one pressed. They all understood what it meant to swallow anger. At noon, Isaiah walked back to the station to file his patrol report. The sun had burned through the morning haze. The air felt thick and still. Civilians moved slowly in the heat. Isaiah was halfway to the station office when someone called out softly behind him. "Excuse me?" He turned. The nurse from earlier stood a few paces away. Up close, Isaiah could see she was young, maybe 25. Her dark hair was pinned back neatly. Her hands were clasped in front of her. "You helped the vendor this morning," she said in careful English. Isaiah nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something wrapped in newspaper. She held it toward him. "Please. For your kindness." Isaiah hesitated. Then he took the small bundle. It was a rice ball, plain and simple, but rice was scarce now. This cost her. "Thank you," Isaiah said. The nurse smiled. It was a small, tentative smile, but it reached her eyes. Isaiah felt something shift in his chest. He had not felt this in years, not since before the war, before the uniform, before the constant weight of proving he was human. A jeep rumbled past. Isaiah glanced toward it and saw a white officer watching them from the passenger seat. Lieutenant Harrington. His expression was cold and flat. The nurse must have seen Isaiah's face change. She bowed quickly and stepped back. "I must go." "Wait," Isaiah said. "What's your name?" She paused. "Aiko Tanaka." Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd of civilians. Isaiah stood there, holding the rice ball. Across the yard, Harrington was still watching. Isaiah felt unease settle into his bones. He walked to the station office. But the paper-wrapped rice ball felt heavier than it should. The station office was cramped and hot. Isaiah sat at a small desk near the back, filling out patrol reports in careful handwriting. The paper was thin. His pencil kept tearing through it. Near the front, 3 white MPs stood in a cluster. They spoke in low voices, but not low enough. Isaiah heard every word. "Did you see that Jap nurse talking to Cole? I heard the locals got a thing for the colored boys. Makes sense. Animals stick together." Laughter followed, sharp and cruel. Isaiah kept his eyes on the report. His jaw tightened, but his hand stayed steady. He wrote the date. September 1945. He wrote the time. 0600 to 1200 hours. He wrote nothing about being called an animal. A Japanese woman approached the desk with repatriation papers. Isaiah checked her documents without speaking. She thanked him softly in Japanese. He nodded. The white MPs watched. One of them whispered something else. More laughter. Isaiah finished the report and stood. His chair scraped against the wooden floor. The room went quiet for a moment. Then the white MPs turned back to their own conversation. Isaiah walked outside. The afternoon sun pressed down on everything. He felt anger simmering beneath his skin. Not hot anger. Cold anger. The kind that had no outlet. He was halfway across the yard when a jeep pulled up. A clerk jumped out and handed him a folded bulletin. It bore the stamp of SCAP. Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers. Isaiah unfolded it and read, "New directive. All fraternization between Allied personnel and Japanese civilians to be strictly monitored. Violations would result in disciplinary action." The words blurred for a moment. Isaiah folded the paper and tucked it into his pocket. The sun was setting now. Orange light spilled across the ruins of Yokohama. Somewhere in those ruins, Aiko Tanaka was finishing her shift at a clinic. Isaiah wondered if she knew about the new rules. He wondered if she would speak to him again. Dread settled into his stomach. It felt familiar. It felt like Georgia. It felt like every place where kindness was punished. He turned back toward the barracks. Evening patrol started soon. The streets of Yokohama stretched out in broken patterns. Isaiah walked beside Private Lewis, their boots crunching over gravel and ash. Buildings stood half collapsed. Some were just charred frames. Others had walls but no roofs. The occupation was barely a month old, but already civilian life was returning. Women swept doorsteps. Children played in empty lots. Old men sat outside makeshift shops, smoking hand-rolled cigarettes. Isaiah and Lewis passed a ration line. Japanese civilians stood patiently, holding tin cups and chipped bowls. American trucks idled nearby. Soldiers handed out rice and canned goods. Posters covered every standing wall. Some showed General MacArthur looking stern and fatherly. Others warned against black market activity. A few were in Japanese only. "Long shift," Lewis muttered. Isaiah nodded. "Always is." They turned down a narrow street lined with damaged houses. Laundry hung from makeshift clotheslines. A radio played softly somewhere, static mixed with Japanese voices. Then Isaiah saw her. Aiko walked ahead with two other women in nurse uniforms. They carried bundles wrapped in cloth. One woman limped. Aiko held her arm, steadying her. Isaiah slowed. Lewis noticed and glanced at him. "Keep moving," Isaiah said quietly. But Aiko had already seen him. She looked over her shoulder. Their eyes met for just a moment. She offered a small smile before turning back to her companions. It was nothing. A glance, a smile, but Isaiah felt it settle into his chest. Lewis said nothing. They continued their patrol in silence. By the time they returned to the barracks, dusk had fallen. The sky was deep purple. Blackout curtains covered the windows of every building. Isaiah climbed the steps and pushed through the door. Inside, the air was stale. Men sat on bunks, writing letters or playing cards. Someone had a harmonica. The music was slow and sad. Isaiah lay down without taking off his boots. He stared at the ceiling. Aiko's smile replayed in his mind. He did not know that Lieutenant Harrington had been watching from a jeep parked 2 blocks away. He did not know that Harrington had written another entry in his daily report. Isaiah closed his eyes. Sleep came slowly. The barracks were quiet at midnight. Most of the men slept. A few snored softly. Isaiah sat on the edge of his bunk, polishing his boots with a rag and black paste. The routine helped him think. Through the thin wall, he could hear voices in the adjacent office. Lieutenant Harrington was still awake. Another officer was with him. Their words were muffled, but the tone was clear. Cold. Official. Isaiah focused on his boots. Left boot first, then right. Small circles. Even pressure. The office door opened. Footsteps crossed the wooden floor, then a knock on the barracks door. "Cole, step outside." Isaiah set down the rag. He stood and walked to the door. Lewis stirred on his bunk but did not wake. Isaiah stepped into the narrow hallway. Harrington stood with his arms crossed. His uniform was crisp even at this late hour. His face was smooth and unreadable. "Follow me," Harrington said. They walked to the office. Harrington closed the door behind them. He gestured to a chair. Isaiah remained standing. "I've been reviewing patrol reports," Harrington said. He tapped a folder on the desk. "You've been seen speaking with Japanese civilians, more than once." "I help when asked, sir," Isaiah said. "That's the job." "The job is maintaining order," Harrington replied, "not socializing." Isaiah said nothing. He kept his face neutral. He had learned this skill young. Harrington leaned against the desk. "I'll be direct, Sergeant. Black soldiers attract a certain kind of attention here. The wrong kind. It reflects poorly on the entire operation." The words hung in the air. Isaiah felt his hands curl into fists. He forced them open again. "I follow orders, sir." "See that you do," Harrington said. "Dismissed." Isaiah turned and left. He walked back to the barracks in darkness. His mind churned. The wrong kind of attention. As if kindness was a crime. As if being seen as human was dangerous. Outside, the wind picked up. Typhoon season. Loose boards rattled. Rain would come soon. Isaiah lay back on his bunk. He stared at the ceiling again. Sleep did not come for a long time. Dawn broke gray and wet. The typhoon had passed during the night. Now the streets of Yokohama gleamed with standing water. Civilians swept puddles from doorways. Ration trucks rumbled through the mud. Isaiah began his shift at the station gate. His uniform was damp from the morning humidity. His rifle hung across his back. He checked identification papers for everyone entering the compound. The line moved slowly. Old women with bundles. Young men with paperwork. A few American contractors. Everyone was tired. Everyone was patient. Then Isaiah saw Aiko hurrying up the road. She carried a leather satchel and wore the same gray dress from before. Her hair was damp at the edges. She joined the line. When she reached the gate, she looked up at Isaiah. Recognition flickered in her eyes. "Medical forms," she said softly. She held up a stamped envelope. Isaiah checked the seal and waved her through. She hesitated. "Thank you," she said. "For yesterday, and the day before." Isaiah glanced around. No one was close enough to hear. "You don't need to thank me." "Many women here admire you," Aiko said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You and your men. You are gentle, not like the others." Isaiah felt heat climb his neck. Not shame this time. Something else. Pride, maybe. Or surprise. Before he could respond, a white MP appeared at his elbow. Corporal Miller. His eyes were hard. "Move along, miss," Miller said sharply. Aiko bowed and walked quickly toward the station office. Miller watched her go. Then he turned to Isaiah. "You got a problem, Cole?" "No problem," Isaiah said evenly. Miller leaned in close. "Animals don't fraternize with civilians. Remember that." He walked away. Isaiah stood at the gate, hands steady on his rifle. Rain began to fall again, soft and steady. The morning stretched on, but the word stayed with him. Animals. Always animals. The repatriation train platform was crowded by afternoon. Japanese civilians pressed close, clutching bags and children. The train stood waiting, its engine hissing steam. American MPs formed a line to keep order. Isaiah supervised the boarding. His job was simple. Make sure no one panicked. Make sure everyone got on safely. The crowd shifted forward. An older man stumbled. Isaiah caught his arm and steadied him. The man nodded gratefully and climbed aboard. Then Isaiah saw Aiko near the nurse's car. She carried a heavy canvas bag filled with medical supplies. Bandages spilled from the top. She struggled with the weight. As she stepped up to the train, her foot slipped on the wet metal step. The bag fell. Supplies scattered across the platform. Isaiah moved without thinking. He knelt and gathered the bandages. Aiko crouched beside him. Their hands nearly touched. "Thank you," she breathed. Around them, people stopped to stare. Japanese civilians whispered. A few white GIs stood nearby, watching with narrowed eyes. One of them shouted, "Hey boy, get away from her!" Isaiah stood slowly. He handed Aiko the bag. His face stayed calm, but his heart pounded. "Just helping, sir," Isaiah said. "We didn't ask for your help, animal." The word echoed across the platform. More civilians turned. Aiko's face went pale. Isaiah felt anger rise but forced it down. He stepped back. Another GI laughed. "Bet he thinks she likes him." Isaiah turned and walked toward the far end of the platform. His hands shook. He made them stop. Behind him, the argument faded. The train whistle blew. As the train pulled away, Isaiah glanced up. Aiko stood at a window in the nurse's car. She raised one hand slightly. Not a wave, just acknowledgement. From across the platform, Lieutenant Harrington watched. His expression was cold. He made no move, but his eyes followed Isaiah. Isaiah felt the trap closing. He just did not know how tight it would get. The MP compound courtyard filled with soldiers at sunset. Isaiah's unit stood in formation, boots aligned, shoulders squared. The air was still and heavy. Lieutenant Harrington stood on a wooden platform. Behind him, the American flag hung limp in the humidity. His voice carried clearly. "Effective immediately, fraternization rules will be strictly enforced," Harrington announced. "Any soldier found engaging in personal contact with Japanese civilians will face disciplinary action." He paused. His eyes swept the formation. They stopped on Isaiah. "This applies to all personnel, no exceptions." Isaiah kept his face blank. Around him, the other black MPs stood equally still. They knew what this meant. The rules were always enforced harder on them. Harrington continued, "We are here to maintain order, not to form relationships. Remember your duty." The speech ended, the formation dismissed. Isaiah walked back to the barracks with the others. No one spoke. Inside, the lantern light was dim. Isaiah sat on his bunk. His stomach felt heavy. He thought about Aiko. He thought about her standing at the train window. He thought about the way she had smiled at him. He wondered if she was safe. He wondered if she had been questioned. He wondered if his kindness had brought her trouble. Lewis sat on the next bunk, writing a letter home. He glanced at Isaiah. "You good?" "Yeah," Isaiah lied. Outside, the compound grew quiet. Guard shifts changed. Somewhere a radio played low, static mixed with music. Isaiah lay back. He stared at the ceiling. Sleep felt impossible, but exhaustion pulled at him. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring more patrols, more watching, more silence. But tonight, the silence felt different. It felt like waiting. It felt like something about to break. The barracks woke to pale dawn light. Isaiah dressed in silence. Around him, men pulled on boots and buttoned shirts. The air felt thick with unspoken worry. Breakfast was cold eggs and coffee. Isaiah ate quickly. His assignment came at morning roll call. Station gate again. Harrington wanted him visible, wanted him monitored. Isaiah walked to the station under gray clouds. His rifle felt heavier than usual. The gate was busy already. Civilians lined up with papers and parcels. Isaiah checked each one. An hour passed. Then 2. The sun climbed higher. Then Aiko appeared at the back of the line. She wore her nurse's uniform. A white bandage wrapped her left wrist. She held her identification card in her other hand. When she reached the gate, Isaiah saw the exhaustion in her eyes. "Medical clinic," she said quietly. Isaiah glanced at the bandage. "You hurt." "Overwork," she said. "Too many patients. Not enough nurses." He checked her card and handed it back. Their fingers brushed. Just for a moment. Isaiah felt electricity run through him. "You should rest," he said. "I cannot." Aiko looked past him toward the station. "Too many need help." Isaiah wanted to say more, but a jeep pulled up behind them. White officers climbed out. Aiko bowed quickly and walked through the gate. Isaiah watched her go. She moved with determination, despite her obvious pain. Something in his chest tightened. At noon, Isaiah's shift ended. He walked towards the barracks, but his mind stayed at the station. He thought about the bandage. He thought about her exhaustion. He made a decision. Dangerous, maybe, but necessary. When his afternoon patrol started, he requested the route that passed near the medical clinic. His sergeant approved without comment. Isaiah and Lewis set out through the narrow streets. The clinic stood in a converted warehouse. Its windows were patched with cardboard. A line of patients waited outside. Isaiah slowed as they passed. Aiko emerged carrying a bucket of dirty water. She emptied it in the street. Then she saw Isaiah. Surprise crossed her face. Then something softer. Isaiah nodded once. She nodded back. They moved on. Lewis said nothing. But Isaiah felt eyes watching from somewhere. Shadows in alleys, jeeps passing slow. The trap was tightening. He could feel it. The afternoon patrol took Isaiah and Lewis through the warehouse district. Most buildings stood empty. Some had become makeshift markets. Others housed refugees. They turned down an alley behind a ration shop. The smell of cooking rice drifted from nearby kitchens. Children played in a dirt lot. Their laughter echoed off broken walls. Isaiah heard shouting ahead. A man's voice, angry and slurred. They rounded a corner. A sailor in wrinkled whites leaned against a wall. He blocked the path of a woman trying to pass. The woman was Aiko. "Come on, Jap girl," the sailor said. "Just one drink." Aiko stepped to the side. The sailor moved with her. He grabbed her arm. Not gently. "Let go," Aiko said firmly. The sailor laughed. "You people lost the war. You don't give orders." Isaiah moved, fast. He stepped between them and placed his hand on the sailor's wrist, not squeezing, just present. "Sir, you need to let her go." The sailor turned. His eyes were bloodshot. His breath reeked of cheap liquor. He looked Isaiah up and down. "A colored MP," he sneered. "This your girl?" "I'm asking you to step away," Isaiah said evenly. The sailor yanked his arm free. He stumbled backward. Lewis moved to Isaiah's other side. The sailor looked at both of them. His face twisted with anger. But he was outnumbered. "Not worth it," the sailor muttered. He staggered away down the alley. A small crowd had gathered. Japanese women whispered to each other. Their eyes moved from the departing sailor to Isaiah. Some smiled slightly. Others bowed. Aiko adjusted her dress. Her hands shook. "Thank you." Isaiah glanced at the sky. The sun was dropping toward the horizon. "It's getting dark. Let me walk you home." Aiko hesitated. She looked at Lewis, then at Isaiah. "Yes, please." Lewis spoke for the first time. "I'll report we're doing a civilian escort. Standard procedure." Isaiah nodded. The three of them started walking. After 2 blocks, Lewis stopped. "I'll head back. You know the way from here, Sarge." Isaiah understood. Lewis was giving them privacy, but also giving Isaiah plausible distance from a witness. Lewis disappeared around a corner. Isaiah and Aiko continued alone. The streets grew quieter as they walked. Evening was coming. The road to Honmoku district was unpaved. Dust rose with each step. On both sides, ruined houses stood next to ones being rebuilt. Gardens returned to life in small patches. Vegetables grew in old bomb craters. Children peeked from doorways as Isaiah and Aiko passed. Their faces showed curiosity, not fear. One little girl waved. Aiko waved back. "They are not afraid of you," Aiko said softly. "Should they be?" Isaiah asked. "No," Aiko shook her head. "But they were taught to be afraid. Propaganda. The Americans would be monsters, they said, especially the black soldiers." Isaiah had heard this before, from other civilians, from translators. The Japanese government had spread lies during the war. They said black Americans were savages, animals, less than human, the same lies he heard back home. "What changed their minds?" Isaiah asked. Aiko smiled slightly. "You did, all of you. You were kind. You helped. You did not act like the monsters they described." They walked in silence for a moment. The sun touched the horizon. Orange light spilled across the broken landscape. Somewhere a dog barked. A radio played faint music. "My brother died in the war," Aiko said suddenly. "He was 17. He believed the propaganda, too. He thought he was fighting devils." Isaiah heard the grief in her voice. "I'm sorry." "I do not blame you," Aiko said quickly. "You did not start the war. You only served your country." "A country that calls me animal," Isaiah said. The words came out before he could stop them. Aiko stopped walking. She turned to face him. Her eyes were serious. "You are not an animal. You are the most human person I have met." Something broke open in Isaiah's chest. He wanted to reach for her hand. He wanted to tell her everything. About Georgia. About Jim Crow. About the constant fight to be seen as human. But he only nodded. They continued walking. Ahead, lanterns flickered in windows. Aiko's home appeared. It was small, wooden. The roof had been patched with tin sheets. As they reached the door, a jeep rolled past on the road behind them. Its headlights swept across them. 2 white MPs sat inside. They slowed. They stared. Then they drove on. Aiko's face went pale. Isaiah felt his stomach drop. They had been seen. Again. "I should go," Isaiah said. "Isaiah!" She said his name carefully. "Be careful." He wanted to tell her the same. Instead, he just nodded. He turned and walked back toward the main road. The moon was rising, pale and full. Behind him, Aiko's door closed softly. Isaiah reached the MP compound after full dark. Blackout curtains covered every window. Guards stood at the gate. They waved him through without comment. The barracks was quiet. Most men were asleep. Lewis sat on his bunk, polishing his boots. He looked up when Isaiah entered. "You good?" Lewis asked. "Yeah," Isaiah said, but his voice lacked conviction. He lay down fully clothed. Sleep felt impossible. His mind replayed the jeep, the headlights, the staring MPs. An hour passed, maybe 2. Then footsteps crossed the compound yard. They stopped outside the barracks. A knock came at the door. "Cole, Lieutenant wants you." Isaiah stood. Around him, men stirred but did not wake. He walked to the door. A corporal waited outside. "Now," the corporal said. They crossed the dark compound to the office building. Light leaked from under Harrington's door. The corporal knocked once and left. "Enter," Harrington called. Isaiah stepped inside. Harrington sat behind his desk. Papers covered the surface. A typed report lay on top. Harrington tapped it with one finger. "Sit down, Sergeant." Isaiah remained standing. "I prefer to stand, sir." Harrington's mouth tightened. "As you wish." He lifted the report. "I have a witness statement here. Claims you escorted a Japanese female through civilian areas. Alone, after dark." "Standard civilian escort, sir," Isaiah said. "She was harassed by a drunk sailor. I ensured she reached home safely." "Alone?" Harrington repeated. "Private Lewis accompanied us part way, then returned to report our status." Harrington set down the paper. He leaned back in his chair. His eyes were cold. "This is the 3rd incident involving you and the same Japanese woman. That establishes a pattern." Isaiah said nothing. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. "I'm going to make this simple," Harrington continued. "Sign a statement admitting inappropriate conduct. Accept a formal reprimand. This ends here." "No, sir." The word hung in the air. Harrington's expression hardened. "You're refusing a direct order?" "I'm refusing to admit to something I didn't do," Isaiah said. "I followed regulations. I protected a civilian. That's my duty." Harrington stood. "Your duty is whatever I say it is." Isaiah met his eyes. "With respect, sir, my duty is to uphold honor, not to abandon it." Silence filled the room. Outside, the wind picked up. A loose shutter banged against a wall. "You're dismissed," Harrington said finally. "But there will be consequences." Isaiah saluted and left. He walked back to the barracks. The compound was dark and quiet. He lay on his bunk. Sleep did not come. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew. 2 days passed. Isaiah worked his shifts. Harrington watched but made no move. The waiting felt worse than action. On the 3rd evening, a young boy appeared at the barracks gate. He handed Isaiah a folded paper. Then he ran. Isaiah unfolded it. The message was simple, written in careful English. Lantern ceremony tonight, Yamashita Park shoreline. Please come. Aiko. Isaiah should have refused, should have torn up the note, but he folded it and put it in his pocket instead. At dusk, he signed out for patrol. No one questioned him. He walked through Yokohama's streets toward the water. The city smelled like cooking fires and salt air. The shoreline was quiet. A small group gathered near the rocks. Aiko stood with her mother and several neighbors. Paper lanterns sat on the sand, unlit, waiting. Aiko saw Isaiah and walked toward him. "Thank you for coming." "What is this?" Isaiah asked. "A memorial, for my brother, and others lost in the war." Isaiah understood. He had attended funerals in Georgia, in training camps, in field hospitals overseas. Grief had no borders. Aiko's mother approached. She was small and gray-haired. She bowed to Isaiah. Aiko translated her words. "She says you honor us with your presence." Isaiah bowed back. "The honor is mine." As darkness fell, they lit the lanterns. One by one, each held a name, each held a prayer. They placed them in the shallow water. The current carried them out toward the bay. Isaiah watched the lights drift. Small flames on dark water, beautiful and sad. Beside him, Aiko stood with her hands clasped. Tears ran down her face. Without thinking, Isaiah reached out. He took her hand. She squeezed back. The lanterns floated farther. The flames flickered but did not go out. Around them, the small group stood in silence. Then Aiko turned to Isaiah. In the glow of the remaining lanterns, her face was soft, vulnerable. She rose on her toes. He bent down. Their lips met. Gentle, trembling, brief. When they parted, Isaiah saw Aiko's mother watching. Her expression was not angry, but it was worried, deeply worried. Isaiah understood. This was dangerous for Aiko too, maybe more dangerous. The ceremony ended. People dispersed. Isaiah walked Aiko home through dark streets. They did not speak. They did not touch again. At her door, she whispered, "Be safe." Then she was gone. Isaiah walked back alone. The moon was bright, too bright. He felt exposed. Isaiah took a different route back to the compound. Instinct told him to avoid main roads. He moved through narrow alleys, past shuttered shops, past homes where families slept. He was 3 blocks from the compound when he heard footsteps behind him. 2 sets, steady and deliberate. Isaiah did not turn around. He kept walking. The footsteps matched his pace. He reached a corner and glanced back. 2 white MPs followed at a distance. One held a small notebook. The other carried a flashlight. Not lit. Just ready. Isaiah's stomach dropped. They had been watching. Maybe for hours. Maybe they had been at the shoreline. He continued walking. The MPs followed. They made no attempt to hide. When Isaiah reached the compound gate, the guard waved him through. The MPs stopped outside. One jotted something in the notebook. Then they turned and walked away. Isaiah went straight to the barracks. Inside, Lewis looked up from his bunk. "You all right?" Lewis asked. "You look spooked." "They were following me," Isaiah said quietly. Lewis's expression darkened. "Harrington?" "Has to be." Lewis stood and moved to the window. He looked out at the compound. "They're building a case. You know that, right?" Isaiah nodded. He knew. Every interaction with Aiko was being documented, every moment twisted into evidence. He lay down on his bunk. His mind raced. If they arrested him, What would happen to Aiko? Would they question her? Threaten her? Outside, a jeep started. Its engine rumbled across the compound. Then it drove away, toward the officers' quarters. Isaiah closed his eyes. Sleep felt impossible, but exhaustion pulled him under. He did not hear the jeep return an hour later. Did not see Lieutenant Harrington climb out, carrying a folder. Did not know that sealed orders had been prepared. When he woke at dawn, everything had changed. Isaiah woke to someone shaking his shoulder. He opened his eyes. A corporal stood over him. "Lieutenant wants you. Now." The barracks was still dark. Isaiah pulled on his boots and followed. Across the compound, lights burned in the office building. Harrington sat at his desk. He did not look up when Isaiah entered. "Close the door." Isaiah obeyed. He stood at attention. Harrington finally looked up. He held a single sheet of paper. "You're being reassigned, effective immediately." Isaiah felt his stomach drop. "Sir?" "Motor pool, Negishi District, 20 miles outside Yokohama." Harrington set down the paper. "Transport leaves in 30 minutes. May I ask why, sir?" "Personnel needs." Harrington's voice was flat, final. "That's all you need to know." Isaiah understood. This was punishment. Exile. Get him away from the city, away from Aiko. "Pack your gear," Harrington said. "Dismissed." Isaiah walked back to the barracks. The sun was rising. Men were waking up. Lewis sat up when Isaiah entered. "What happened?" "Transfer," Isaiah said. He pulled his duffel from under the bunk. "They're moving me out." Lewis stood. "This is about the nurse." Isaiah nodded. He packed quickly. Extra uniforms, his shaving kit. The letters from home he kept hidden. Everything fit in one bag. The other men gathered. No one spoke. They understood what this meant. A jeep horn honked outside. Isaiah slung his duffel over his shoulder. He shook hands with Lewis, with the others. No words needed. Outside, the jeep waited. A silent driver sat behind the wheel. Isaiah climbed into the passenger seat. The driver started the engine. As they pulled away, Isaiah looked back. The barracks grew smaller. The station disappeared. Yokohama faded behind them. His heart felt heavy. He thought about Aiko. She would go to the station looking for him. He would not be there. She would wonder. She would worry. He had no way to tell her. No way to say goodbye. The jeep headed north, toward empty fields, toward isolation, toward a place where no one would see him anymore. The road to Negishi stretched through burned rice paddies. Farmers worked in the distance. Small figures bent over young crops. Children watched the jeep pass. Isaiah said nothing. The driver said nothing. An hour passed. The motor pool appeared. A collection of rusted vehicles behind chain-link fencing. Corrugated sheds held spare parts. The smell of oil and gasoline hung in the air. A sergeant met them at the gate. He was white, older. His face was weathered. "You Cole?" "Yes, Sergeant." "I'm Briggs." He gestured toward the sheds. "You'll be maintaining convoy vehicles. We rotate trucks to Yokohama twice a week, that's all." Isaiah nodded. "Understood." Briggs showed him the barracks. It was smaller than the one in Yokohama. Only 6 bunks. 3 were occupied. The men inside looked up without interest, then went back to their business. Isaiah chose an empty bunk and dropped his duffel. No one spoke to him. He did not speak to them. His first shift started immediately, changing oil, checking tire pressure, replacing spark plugs. The work was mechanical, mindless. It left too much room to think. That evening, mail call came. The other men received letters. Packages. Isaiah received nothing. He sat on his bunk after dinner. The barracks was quiet. Outside, insects buzzed. Somewhere a radio played American music. Big band. Cheerful. Wrong. Isaiah pulled out paper and a pencil. He started a letter to Aiko, but he had no address. He crumpled the paper and threw it away. Days blurred together. Oil changes, convoy checks, silent meals, no news from Yokohama, no word about Aiko. Isaiah lay awake at night. He stared at the ceiling. He thought about her smile, her courage, the way she had kissed him beside the floating lanterns. He did not know if she was safe, if she had been questioned, if she was looking for him. The not knowing hurt more than any punishment Harrington could devise. On his 5th night at the motor pool, a rumor reached the barracks. A nurse in Yokohama had been detained. Something about contact with a colored MP. Isaiah's blood went cold. He sat up. "Who told you that?" The soldier shrugged. "Driver brought it from the city. Don't know if it's true." Isaiah did not sleep that night. By dawn, he had made his decision. Dangerous, court-martial worthy, but necessary. He was going back to Yokohama, with or without permission. The motor pool slept. Isaiah lay on his bunk, fully dressed. His boots were laced. His duffel was packed. The rumor about Aiko burned in his mind. At midnight he stood. The other soldiers snored softly. Isaiah moved to the door. It creaked once. He froze. No one stirred. Outside, the compound was dark. One guard stood near the gate. His back was turned. He smoked a cigarette. The ember glowed orange in the blackness. Isaiah moved along the fence line, away from the gate, toward the section he had studied for 3 days. The chain link sagged near the corner post. Someone had cut it before, then twisted it back together. Isaiah pulled the wire apart. The metal scraped softly. He slipped through. His shirt caught and tore. He did not stop. On the other side, he ran low across an empty field. Tall grass brushed his legs. Behind him, the compound lights grew distant. He reached a dirt road. His breath came hard, not from exertion, from fear. He was absent without leave now. If caught, they would imprison him. Possibly worse. But Aiko might be in danger. That mattered more than his own safety. Isaiah started walking. Yokohama was 20 miles south. He moved fast. The moon provided enough light to see the road. An hour passed, then 2. His legs burned. Sweat soaked his uniform. A convoy rumbled past. Isaiah dove into tall grass. The trucks did not slow. When they passed, he continued. Dawn was coming. Pink light touched the eastern sky. He had to reach Yokohama before full daylight. Had to find Aiko before the MPs found him. The road stretched ahead. Isaiah walked faster. His mind cycled through possibilities. Where would they hold her? The station? A detention facility? Would they let him see her? He pushed the questions away. First, he had to get there. Everything else could wait. The sun broke the horizon. Orange light flooded the ruined landscape. In the distance, Yokohama's broken skyline appeared. Isaiah felt hope surge in his chest. He was close now. So close. The outskirts of Yokohama woke around Isaiah. Vendors set up carts. Workers headed to factories. Children walked to makeshift schools. Life continued despite the ruins. Isaiah kept his head down. He stayed off main roads. Took alleys instead. Narrow passages between damaged buildings. He passed a checkpoint without being seen. His first stop was the medical clinic where Aiko worked. It stood quiet. The door was locked. A handwritten sign, hung from a nail, closed until further notice. Isaiah's stomach tightened. He moved to the window, peered inside. Empty. Chairs were overturned. Medical supplies scattered across the floor. Someone had searched the place. Roughly. Isaiah turned away. His next option was the repatriation station. If they had detained her, that was the most likely location. He crossed the city carefully, ducked into doorways when jeeps passed. Japanese civilians gave him curious looks but said nothing. Some recognized his uniform. A few nodded respectfully. Near a ration line, Isaiah stopped an old woman. "Excuse me, do you know Nurse Tanaka? Aiko Tanaka?" The woman's eyes widened. She pointed towards the station. "American soldiers took her 3 days ago." Isaiah's blood ran cold. "Is she hurt?" The woman shook her head. "I do not know. They said protective custody." She looked at Isaiah with pity. "You should not go there. Dangerous for you." "I have to," Isaiah said. He continued toward the station. The sun climbed higher. Morning turned to mid-morning. Sweat dripped down his back. His uniform clung to his skin. The station appeared ahead. The gate was busy. MPs checked identification. Civilians lined up. Everything looked normal, but Isaiah knew better. He approached slowly. A white MP at the gate looked up. Recognition flashed across his face. "Cole, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at Nagishi?" Isaiah straightened. "I need to speak with Lieutenant Harrington." "You need to get back to your post," the MP said. "Now." Isaiah did not move. "Where is Aiko Tanaka?" The MP's expression hardened. "That's none of your business. Where is she?" Isaiah's voice stayed calm but firm. The MP reached for his radio. Isaiah made his choice. He pushed past the gate. The MP grabbed his arm. Isaiah pulled free and kept walking. Shouts erupted behind him. Boots pounded dirt. Isaiah did not run. He walked with purpose. Toward the main building, toward answers. 3 MPs caught up to Isaiah before he reached the station office. They surrounded him, hands on their rifles, not pointing, but ready. "Stand down, Cole," one ordered. "I need to see Lieutenant Harrington," Isaiah said. "You're under arrest," another MP replied, "for desertion." "I'm not leaving until I see her." More MPs appeared. A crowd formed. Japanese civilians stopped to watch. The tension crackled. Isaiah kept his hands visible, kept his voice steady, but he did not move. Lieutenant Harrington emerged from the office. His face was red. His eyes blazed. "Sergeant Cole, you've made a serious mistake." "Where is Aiko Tanaka?" Isaiah asked. "That's classified information." "She's done nothing wrong," Isaiah said. His voice carried across the yard. "Neither have I. We talked, nothing more. If that's a crime, then arrest me. But let her go." Harrington stepped closer. His voice dropped. "You think you can just walk in here? Abandon your post? Make demands?" "I think I can. Ask for basic human decency," Isaiah replied. Behind the wire partition of a holding area, Isaiah saw movement. A figure in gray, Aiko. She stood pressed against the fence. Her face was pale. A bruise marked her cheek. Their eyes met. Isaiah felt everything else fade. She was alive. She was here. "Aiko!" he called. "Isaiah!" Her voice was hoarse. Harrington grabbed Isaiah's arm. "That's enough." Isaiah pulled free, not violently, but firmly. He walked toward the holding area. The MPs moved to block him. Isaiah stopped. He turned to face everyone. MPs, civilians, Japanese officials who had emerged from offices. His voice rang clear. "If protecting a woman's safety makes me an animal in your eyes, then it's your eyes that need changing, not my nature." The yard went silent. Even the MPs hesitated. The words hung in the air. Heavy. True. Undeniable. Aiko stepped forward. She reached through the fence. Isaiah moved to her. Their hands met through the wire. Several white soldiers looked away. Ashamed. A few others nodded slightly, acknowledging something they had tried to ignore. Harrington stood frozen, his authority challenged, his prejudice exposed. Harrington recovered first. His face went hard again. "Remove him, now." 2 MPs moved forward. but a Japanese official stepped between them. He was older, gray-haired. His suit was neat despite the occupation's chaos. "Wait," the official said in accented English. "I wish to understand this situation." Harrington's jaw clenched. "This is a military matter." "This involves a Japanese citizen," the official replied. "Under occupation law, I have authority to inquire." The MPs stopped. Harrington looked trapped. The official turned to Isaiah. "You are Sergeant Cole?" "Yes, sir." "And Miss Tanaka is being held. Why?" Harrington answered. "Contact with Allied personnel, compromising military integrity." The official looked at Aiko, then at Isaiah, then back at Harrington. "I see no compromise. I see a nurse performing her duties and a soldier performing his." Harrington opened his mouth, closed it. The Japanese official continued. "Unless you have evidence of actual misconduct, I must insist on her release." "She was seen with him," Harrington said. "Multiple times." "Speaking?" the official asked. "Walking? These are crimes now?" Silence fell again. The crowd grew larger. More civilians, more soldiers. Everyone watched. Everyone listened. Isaiah spoke quietly. "I've done nothing but my duty. Protected civilians. Maintained order. If you want to punish me for that, I accept it. But she's innocent." Aiko's voice came through the fence. "He speaks truth. He has only shown kindness. That should not be punished." The official looked at Harrington. "Release her, or I will file a formal protest with SCAP headquarters." Harrington's face went pale. A formal protest would bring attention, investigation, questions he could not answer. His prejudice would become visible, official. Hoff turned to a corporal. "Release Miss Tanaka, pending further review." The corporal unlocked the gate. Aiko stepped out. She was shaking, but she walked with dignity. She moved toward Isaiah. Harrington pointed at Isaiah. "You're confined to quarters, pending court-martial for desertion." Isaiah nodded. He had expected this. "Yes, sir." Two MPs stepped forward, not rough, but firm. They guided Isaiah toward a jeep. Aiko reached for him. Their hands touched briefly. Then he was pulled away. As Isaiah climbed into the jeep, he looked back. Aiko stood surrounded by Japanese civilians, women, men, children. They formed a protective circle around her. No one would hurt her now. Too many witnesses. Isaiah allowed himself to be driven away. His heart felt lighter despite the consequences waiting. The temporary holding cell was small, 6 feet by 8 feet. A single cot, a bucket in the corner, bars on one side, concrete on the other 3. Isaiah sat on the cot. Guards changed shifts outside. Morning became afternoon. Afternoon became evening. No one spoke to him. On the second day, a guard brought food. Bread and water. Isaiah ate slowly. His mind wandered. He thought about Aiko, about her bruised face, about the way the civilians had surrounded her. He had done the right thing, even if it cost him everything. On the third morning, voices rose outside. Arguing, Japanese and English mixed together. Isaiah stood and moved to the bars. Through the narrow window, he saw Japanese officials entering the compound. The same man from before, others with him. They carried documents. An hour later, a guard unlocked Isaiah's cell. "Lieutenant wants you," Isaiah followed. They crossed to Harrington's office. Inside, Harrington sat behind his desk. His expression was strained. The Japanese official stood nearby. "Sergeant Cole," Harrington said stiffly, "due to certain diplomatic considerations, your punishment has been reduced." Isaiah said nothing. He waited. "You will receive a formal reprimand," Harrington continued. 30 days confined to base. Reassignment to follow." He paused. His jaw worked. "The desertion charge is dropped." Isaiah understood. The Japanese officials had pressured SCAP. A court-martial would raise questions about why Isaiah left, about Aiko, about the racism underlying everything. Better to bury it quietly. Miss Tanaka has been released, the official said. She returns to her duties at the hospital. No further action will be taken against her. Relief flooded through Isaiah. She was free. She was safe. Dismissed, Harrington said. Isaiah saluted and left. The guard escorted him to a different barracks, smaller, more isolated, but not a cell. He could see sky through the window. That evening, a guard brought dinner. Real food, rice and vegetables. Isaiah ate while watching the sun set. Somewhere in Yokohama, Aiko was watching the same sunset. He hoped she felt the same cautious relief, the same fragile hope. The fight was not over, but they had survived this round. The disciplinary barracks held 6 men. Isaiah was the only black soldier. The others were white, confined for various offenses: drunkenness, insubordination, fighting. They kept to themselves. Isaiah did the same. He woke at dawn, ate breakfast in silence, spent his days cleaning the compound, sweeping, washing vehicles. Menial work meant to humble him. He did not feel humbled. He felt determined. On the 4th day, a guard named Patterson brought his lunch. Patterson was young, maybe 20. He set down the tray and lingered. "Cole," Patterson said quietly. "That thing with the nurse. I was there." Isaiah looked up. "Yeah?" "Harrington was wrong," Patterson continued. His voice was barely audible. "What he did, how he treated you both." He paused. "You're not the animal. He is." Isaiah felt surprise. Then something warmer. Not all of them agreed with Harrington. Not all of them believed the lies. "Thanks," Isaiah said simply. Patterson nodded and left. But the words stayed with Isaiah. They mattered. Small acknowledgement, but real. The days blurred. Isaiah counted them. 10 days? 15? 20? He received 1 letter. From Lewis. Brief and coded. "Everyone knows what you did. You have friends here." Isaiah folded the letter and kept it. Friends. The word felt foreign, but welcome. On day 25, Harrington appeared at the barracks. "Cole, you're being reassigned, effective next week." Isaiah stood. "Where?" "Processing station in Osaka," Harrington said. "Far from Yokohama." He smiled coldly. "Far from distractions." Isaiah nodded. He had expected this. They wanted him gone, out of sight, away from Aiko. But 5 days remained. 5 days in Yokohama before the transfer. 5 days to say goodbye. On the morning of day 30, the guard unlocked the barracks. "You're free to go. Report to the main compound." Isaiah gathered his few belongings, stepped outside. The air smelled like rain. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. He walked slowly across the compound, his mind already planning. He had to find Aiko, had to see her one last time, even if only to say goodbye properly. The gate stood ahead. Freedom waited. And uncertainty. Isaiah had 2 hours before his mandatory check-in at the main compound. 2 hours of freedom. He used them carefully. He found the medical clinic first. It was open again. Patients lined up outside. But Aiko was not there. A nurse told him she had transferred. To the harbor hospital near the waterfront. Isaiah walked quickly through Yokohama's streets. The city felt different now. Rebuilding was everywhere. New shops opening, children laughing, life returning despite the scars. The harbor hospital stood in a converted warehouse. Isaiah approached carefully. He could not risk being seen with Aiko again. Not before his transfer. He waited across the street, watched the entrance. An hour passed. Nurses came and went. Finally, Aiko emerged. She carried a medical bag. Her hair was pulled back. The bruise on her cheek had faded to yellow. Isaiah crossed the street. Aiko! She turned. Surprise flashed across her face, then joy, then worry. Isaiah, you should not be here. I know. He gestured toward the pier. Walk with me? Just for a moment. She hesitated, then nodded. They walked side by side, not touching, just close enough to feel each other's presence. The pier stretched over dark water. Seabirds called overhead. Fishing boats bobbed at anchor. The smell of salt and seaweed filled the air. They stopped at the end. Water lapped against wooden posts. The city spread behind them, broken but healing. They're sending me to Osaka, Isaiah said. I leave tomorrow. Aiko's face fell. How long? I don't know. Maybe months, maybe longer. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not let them fall. Will you come back? Isaiah wanted to promise, wanted to say yes with certainty, but he could not lie to her. I don't know. Aiko reached out, took his hand, held it tightly. What we shared mattered, even if the world says it should not. It mattered. It did, Isaiah agreed. His voice was rough. It still does. They stood together, watching the water, feeling the morning sun warm their faces. This moment was all they had, all they could promise. Finally, Aiko released his hand. Be safe, wherever you go. You too, Isaiah said. She turned and walked back down the pier. Isaiah watched her go, memorizing the way she moved, the strength in her shoulders, the dignity she carried. When she disappeared into the crowd, Isaiah allowed himself one deep breath. Then he walked back to the compound. His heart felt heavy, but also full. He had loved, had been loved, had fought for something right. That counted. Even in a world determined to say it, did not. The transport truck arrived at dawn. Isaiah climbed into the back with 7 other soldiers, all reassignments, all heading to different posts. The truck rumbled to life, pulled away from the Yokohama compound. Isaiah sat near the tailgate, watched the city pass. Ruined buildings, rebuilding crews, markets opening, life continuing. They drove through neighborhoods he recognized, past the repatriation station, past the ration lines, past streets he had patrolled. Then they entered the outskirts, where the damage was lighter, where gardens grew, where children played in cleared lots. A group of Japanese women stood beside the road. They watched the truck approach. When they saw the black MPs inside, they waved. Shy smiles crossed their faces. Respectful. Grateful. Isaiah raised his hand, waved back. The women bowed. The truck rolled past. One of the soldiers next to Isaiah spoke. They like us, you know. More than the white boys sometimes. Isaiah nodded. He knew. Despite propaganda, despite lies, despite everything the world told them, these women had seen the truth, had recognized humanity where they were told. None existed. The truck turned onto the main road heading south. Yokohama disappeared behind them. Isaiah settled back against the wooden bench. His mind drifted to Aiko, to their brief time together, to the kiss beside floating lanterns, to their final goodbye on the pier. He had lost much, would face more prejudice, more barriers, more men who would call him animal. But he had gained something too, proof that dignity could not be stolen, that humanity could bloom even in ruins. That courage mattered more than permission. Isaiah straightened his cap, sat tall. The road ahead was uncertain, but he carried with him a truth stronger than fear. He was not what they called him. He was what he chose to be, and he chose honor, chose compassion, chose love. The truck rolled on through morning light. Behind him, Yokohama held memories. Ahead, uncertainty waited. But inside, Isaiah carried something unbreakable, hope, painful and bittersweet, but real, and real hope, once claimed, could never be fully taken away.